What is the point of what we're doing in Iran?
Well, I think at this point, we've just had enough. I mean, the Iranians have been attacking us right now for decades. They've been at war with us covertly for years. I remember when I was in Baghdad, Iraq, I saw soldiers right in front of me get killed by Iranian bombs. We were not at war with them. We were at war with Al Qaeda, but yet they were at war with us, and they continued being at war with us. And I think the administration finally had enough. They proved America is done playing nuclear roulette with the Iranian regime. You just don't negotiate anymore with hostile terrorist nations that openly defy international norms. And I've said it time and time again, you can only deter them by using overwhelming strength. That is the language that the Iranians understand, and prior administrations didn't do anything about it. And I think that's what we're seeing today. Iran was also warned, by the way, that this was coming multiple times. They didn't listen. President Trump chose diplomacy as the first tool, not the last tool. And I think the world needs to acknowledge that. He exhausted nearly every single diplomatic effort to even the very last minute before this military operation. But Iran, as usual, chose defiance over peace. They continued to play games as if the U.S. wasn't paying attention, as if all of a sudden we've turned our backs on their decades of evil, as if our intelligence services didn't see them trying to reconstitute their nuclear program in secret or build long-range missiles that were designed to kill Americans. And, well, Iran's regime has a 40-year-plus track record of pushing right up to the line and then betting that the United States is not going to respond. That gamble probably worked when administrations issued these warnings without any follow through, but not today. I think today's proof that we're not going to abandon our red lines anymore. We're going to enforce them with overwhelming military might, and we're going to ensure that they're incapable of doing this again.
Okay. Well, the stated goal of President Trump is regime change. I had General David Petraeus on yesterday. He confirmed. He said, "Yeah, I mean, the goal is regime change." I'm just putting this through like some level of critical thinking, Brett. When I follow up, if I take your premise that we've had enough, we've just had enough, and so now we're done playing this game with you, Iran. Does that necessitate regime change? Couldn't we have continued in Operation Midnight Hammer type of actions and continued to just suppress Iran? Is cutting the head off the snake necessary to be done with Iran? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, because
yeah,
we do have
absolutely.
to acknowledge
I think no, it's a
regime
good
change.
point.
Regime change is a big one.
Regime change is a big one. We all know what happened in Iraq. We all know what happened in Afghanistan. I don't think anyone wants that. But we have to be honest with who we're dealing with. And the fact is that the Iranian people, they want change. They want freedom. And when the Iranian people fear their own rulers, like the Ayatollah, more than the U.S. military, I think that's when it's time to do something. That's when freedom begins to win. And the fact is that you've had these hardliners at the top that act as if they're speaking for the Iranian people. But that's just not the case when you talk to the average person out there. They hate their own oppressive rulers more than anyone else. And when the Ayatollah was killed, we're looking right now at a potential collapse of the pillars that have kept this very violent anti-American regime in power. That could finally create real space for real change inside Iran. That's potentially going to leave the freedom for millions of people. The Ayatollah is more than just a religious figure. He was the mastermind behind a revolutionary regime that crushed protesters, young men and women who just wanted freedom. And they backed terrorist aggression across the region. This is a man who spent more than 35 years backing terror proxies from Hezbollah to Hamas, threatening America, our allies at every turn. And I think people finally now have the opportunity to rise up and do something about it. Don't let critics tell you that this military action was reckless. I don't think this is going to be some sustained, long, year-end campaign. But yes, the fact is that the Middle East dynamic now has changed. Global power has shifted. This was very calculated. It was strategic, and it was necessary. We're not out there anymore to start random wars. We're out there to dismantle threats before they reach our shores, and we have to cut the head off the snake to do that so that we can actually affect real change.
Okay. I want to come back to how long you said this won't be a real long. I hope you understand. I'm not arguing with you. I am asking questions that I hope are important questions that people are asking of themselves, as well. So the thing you just said, which for the record, I agree with you. the Iranian people, the Persian people, they're not the same as the Iraqi people, certainly not the same as the Afghans. They have a history of a civilization that was much more advanced prior to 1979. The appetite for, I will use this word, but I'm a little hesitant to use it, but the appetite for democracy seems to be a bit higher than it would be in some place like Iraq, and again, certainly more so than Afghanistan. But I am a little hesitant because we heard similar things in those places. The people want this. The people want this. And the question is, on the hubris front, you probably heard me talking about it ahead of time. Like, we haven't been good at this, Brett, of what comes next. We just haven't been that good. We're good at taking out what is, not good at anticipating or controlling what is next. And so the how long thing you introduced and the regime change element of this, it's like, okay, I have no doubt that in the matter of a couple of weeks, we can totally neuter the existing regime or destroy it. But what next?
Right. No, it's a great point. I think you're right. We've been bad at that. I think the difference is hopefully we are not putting humans and boots on the ground, because that then becomes more of this religious fight where people potentially will come just to try and kill Americans for being on Arab land. That is something that I think was a major mistake in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I'm hoping we can do a lot of this from the air, because there has been a complete structural shock to the regime, right? Their internal system in Iran, it's highly centralized around the supreme leader. I don't think President Trump, he had an opportunity, I believe, to kill the Ayatollah many months ago when the Israelis, were doing stuff in there. He chose not to, because this is a religious leader. And it's very difficult to understand what is going to happen religiously with Shiites out there and potentially getting them to rise up against us because we've removed him. So that is something that is uncertain. Removing that node, it just creates this uncertainty across the board inside the clerical establishment, across the proxy networks. I think the key question here is not emotion, it's command and control. Who gives the orders? Who controls escalation? That uncertainty will either fracture the regime or trigger a major retaliation. And that's the strategic moment we're in. And I've said before, there was no doubt that the Israelis probably knew exactly where he was. Trump said no. He chose restraint. But at this time now, we are in a situation where there are a lot of unknowns, and it's tough to say how they are going to respond. But regardless, I think that this was necessary. And, again, the Iranian people, I go back to them. There's images of them celebrating.